4.0, NFC, USB 2.0 and assisted GPS. As for web browsing, Huawei has equipped the Mate 7 with its own browser, which is actually a pretty decent performer and quite a looker too. It has extras like full screen mode and incognito tabs, and load times are better than average. On board the Ascent Mate 7's rear is a resident 13-megapixel Sony IMX214 sensor with wide-angled f2.0 lens. Huawei has gone for a very minimalistic approach with the camera UI, which, by the way, looks a lot alike to what you get with an iPhone on iOS 7. In any case, we're loving the ergonomics of the spaced-out UI, but we do miss the option to manually set variables such as ISO, white balance and the like. Nevertheless, the software is not without its extras and has support for HDR photos, panoramas and beauty shots. There's also a special Ultra Snapshot feature, which is not obvious at first, but it basically allows you to double tap the volume key while the phone is locked and take a snap real fast. Moving on to quality of snaps, we've gotta say that on the whole, we're looking at a capable shooter. On the plus side, stills can be properly exposed and realistic in terms of color reproduction. Unfortunately, we can't say that the results were always predictable. For example, outdoor snaps are sometimes underexposed and are visibly cold. Interestingly enough, when shooting indoors, the situation is reversed. Snaps are warmer and that skews color reproduction slightly. As for stills taken in darkness, we're happy to see that colors remain vibrant, if slightly overstated, even when the LED flash goes off. Sadly, the power of the flash leaves something to be desired, and objects towards the sides of photos tend to not get sufficiently illuminated. Turning the Mate 7 around, we're faced with a 5-megapixel selfie snapper good for 1080p video capture for the occasional video chat. The unit delivers very agreeable stills and is on par with other heavyweights like the HTC One M8, but trails the amazing 8-megapixel shooter at the front of the Huawei Ascent P7. As a camcorder, the Mate 7 is alright, but we've definitely seen better at the flagship level. Perhaps the biggest irk is exposure. While it is continuously adjusted during recording, clips are consistently underexposed. So, in addition to making scenes look darker than in reality, this also serves to obscure finer details. On the plus side, clips are fluid and the frame rate does not drop even in darkness. As for extra shooting modes, there are very few of those. With the exception of 1080p capture at 30 frames per second and 720p HDR video, the Mate 7 fails to match what the competition offers, like 4K UHD video, extra fluid 1080p clips at 60 FPS and even slow-mos. Thankfully, Huawei hasn't dropped the ball in terms of the Mate 7's multimedia capabilities, so expect quality 1080p playback of clips with various encodings. In terms of audio reproduction, you won't find the Mate 7 speaker placed on the back lacking in loudness, but we can't say clarity is excellent. Unfortunately, the placement of the speaker is problematic and laying the device down will muffle the sound coming out of it. As for the software, we're looking at a skinned but stock Android video player, though the company has made some changes with the Music One. For example, it is much fancier than the stock music player and the visuals are quite attractive. But when it comes to functionality, the Mate 7 doesn't really bring much to the table, with perhaps the exception of lyric support. Unfortunately, we can't say that the Mate 7 is Huawei's finest in terms of call quality. The microphone had a better showing and the other side heard us loudly and clearly for the most part. However, the earpiece is a tad too important in the volume department and voice quality is only average, with voices sounding a bit digitized even if tonal information was still there. Overall, in this department, the Huawei Ascent Mate 7 is only average. Huawei has endowed the Ascent Mate 7 with an enormous 4100 mAh cell. As can be expected, that's more than plenty enough to get you through at least 2 days and even over that, so long as you're conservative with your usage. The above is corroborated by the results from our battery life test, on which the Ascent Mate 7 clocked 9 hours and 3 minutes. That's a significant premium over rival phablets like the LG G3, which had 6 hours and 14 minutes, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, which scored 6 hours and 8 minutes. In fact, when looking at devices with 1080p resolution screens, Huawei's Mate 7 is the current king of the hill. In conclusion, the Huawei Ascent Mate 7 probably isn't for everybody. Certainly the 6-inch screen will put off some, as that's obviously way into phablet territory. On the bright side, however, the Mate 7 is a really compact device relative to its screen size and design-wise leaves very little to desire. It's a well-built, sturdy metal phone that leaves no room for doubt concerning its high-end status. In fact, looking at the full picture, it's hard to pinpoint any one segment in which the Mate 7 didn't deliver. That doesn't mean it's perfect though. The camera, for example, could use some work and the UI still has some kinks to straighten out. But in every other way, this is a great pick, especially if you're looking for a phablet. So how much is Huawei expecting for you to part with if you wish to go for the Mate 7? To start off, the number is €499 for the 16GB version with 2GB of RAM and €599 for the 32GB model with 3GB of RAM. Of course, considering its high price tag, picking the Mate7 shouldn't be considered a trivial decision, but it has definitely won our support. This honestly is a great piece of tech, so the only question that remains is whether that's enough to make up for the company's weak brand image in the West. Once again, this was Chris with Phone Arena. Thank you for tuning in.